balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Welcome up,
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, filling in for Scott Gearman tonight. Joined by friend Blake Williams, donning a hat, unlike the last time you saw him on this channel. And Blake, the Dodgers won the first two games against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I'm pretty sure nothing has happened since, right?
Yeah, the game was canceled today. If you didn't watch it, it's because it wasn't on, not because it was on a different channel that you needed to go out of your way to find or anything. So yeah, nothing happened. It was another great off day.
Great for a lot of the Dodgers, it ended up being an off day, as I think Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts were all out of there after like the second inning when it was abundantly clear at 8-0 that this game was a wreck. But we'll get into the Arizona Diamondbacks series thus far. We'll get into tomorrow's game. We'll get into kind of an August in review, starting pitching, bullpen, some hitting stuff, as well as some injury updates. So lots to get to. Thank you to everybody joining us live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Thanks to everyone watching after the fact or listening on Apple, Spotify, or Google. We appreciate you. So let's talk briefly, Blake, about this Arizona series. I said going in 2-2, I'm perfectly content. Scott made the point 3-1 would get them the season series if the tiebreaker were to matter. I am steadfast that even if they were to lose tomorrow, I would still be content. I feel like the battle has already been won this weekend by taking Friday and Saturday, especially given kind of all the pitching gymnastics they've had to do. Where are you at as the Dodgers head into game 4, having taken 2 out of 3 so far?
I feel good. And going into the series, I said, I think we're all going to be happy if they take 2 games. But after they won the first 2 games, with everything that happened and like Kershaw getting hurt and just the pitching staff kind of imploding, like not coming out of this with 3 wins after pulling off that would be kind of a disappointment looking back on it. Yeah, I think I'm still content that they won 2 and they're going to at worst split the series. But if you win 2 now, then the Diamondbacks have the season series. So that could come into play later down the line. And just like you had the opportunity to win 3 games and you didn't do it. It's just a little disappointing to kind of figure that and look back on it when they have the chance to.
The good news for the Dodgers tomorrow of the entire series is the best pitching matchup that they have. They have the best pitcher of their 4 who played in this series, Jack Flaherty on the mound, Eduardo Rodriguez on the mound for the Diamondbacks. He's got an ERA over 5. He gave up 5 runs the last time he was out there against the Mets. So it does feel like things are setting themselves up nicely. And by the way, Blake, as far as the bullpen goes, shout out to the Dodgers coaching staff, front office, the guys out there, because they've kind of weathered the Friday night storm. Not a single guy who pitched on Friday had to be used on Saturday or Sunday. Kasperius was up and then down. Grove was filling in a little bit. Evan Phillips, who didn't pitch Friday, pitched Saturday. So it does feel like moving forward that the bullpen should be fine, including tomorrow. They did mention that Dave Roberts said he expects to make a move. So whether that's Brent Honeywell being DFA'd again, whether Michael Grove gets sent back down, we could see either Landon Knack or Michael Peterson. So that is good news for the Dodgers. Flaherty on the mound and seemingly a rested bullpen.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if they don't send down Wroblewski and Grove after today and bring up both Peterson and Knack, just because how much their bullpen has been worked. And then you could even leave Knack up to make the next start when Wroblewski's time comes around again. So yeah, I think it makes sense for them to bring up 2, but it is pretty good having a rested bullpen going into tomorrow. I think that's kind of why they punted so early today. You're down 8-0. It's try and win with slim odds and burn your bullpen and hurt yourself tomorrow, or just put up the white flag like they did and try and salvage it tomorrow with the win. So I get the logic there. I know a lot of people weren't happy that they kind of punted the game, especially so early, but I think the numbers kind of back that up a lot. And the bullpen has just been so overworked, it really wasn't worth it.
Where are you at on Wroblewski? I've gotten a lot of dialogue on social media, and it's funny because I've said all along that on one hand, I'm long-term, I like Wroblewski. Short-term, I think as a bullpen arm, sure, maybe. But I've actually been pretty low on him as a starting pitching because the performance, the underlying metrics has all been, I would say, below maybe what the narrative about him feels like it has been. I'm not overreacting to today's start, but like part of me wonders, is this the last time we see Justin Wroblewski in the majors this year?
Yeah, I think so. It feels like he has some upside, but he's just not ready yet. He's still a unfinished product, and I don't think he's ever going to reach like an ace level or anything like that. But
Yeah.
at some point, he could end up being a solid piece to a pitching staff. He's just not there yet. The command was terrible today, and when the command falls apart, he doesn't have the stuff to make up for that. He kind of really needs to be locked in to have good starts, and he's had trouble with the home run balls. And today was everything that was giving him trouble. So I think it was kind of some regression from what we did see from him, which was surprising because I think he entered the game with an ERA around 4 to begin with. So he's probably best off just working on things in the minors for the time being.
Yeah, and good news. Go look at what Gavin Stone's 2023 Major League box score stat line was. There is hope for a guy to have a bad sort of debut season, go home, come back the next year and be more of a contributor, although he's going to have a ton of competition, which is a conversation for another day with Gonsolin May, Emmett Sheehan, Nick Frasso, all guys who project at least to be healthy at the beginning of next season. Richard with the super chat, we appreciate that. He said, by taking games 1 and 2, it allowed Doc to put tomato cans on the mound, saving the bullpen, and didn't use high leverage arms on Saturday. Get the win. So we're in total agreement there. I understand why punting any game would be frustrating for people, but if there was ever a game to punt, it's Robleski on the mound. He gets shelled. You've won game 1 and 2. Kershaw goes out in the first inning of game 1. Like this was tailor-made. Honestly, I felt like they were maybe even prepared to punt on Saturday, but because the team performed so well that they just sort of said, well, then we'll punt Sunday unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, I think the offense kind of picked Dave Roberts up a bit there, or like at least the situation of how things looked, because if they didn't win that game where Kershaw only went 2 innings and still burned their bullpen, and then you punt the next day after losing that day, like, it just would not have looked good among the fan base. Would have been a lot of complaints about how they didn't try for the wins even harder and all that. And your options would have been like call up a few of these pitchers that we've seen struggle or just not do well, or completely burn out your bullpen even more. And then you leave yourself looking for answers on Monday, and you're potentially putting yourself behind like 3 games, all losses, and you're burning up the bullpen. So the offense coming out with the win in that game really helped them out there a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, thank you for the super chat, Richard. We appreciate that. We'll get to some questions at the end, but if you've got something you want, a pressing comment or a pressing question, as always, we appreciate the super chats. They help support this show and make sure that we're able to continue doing what we do. Kenny, Maddie Man, David, Laura, Roy, BC, a lot of familiar names and faces in the chat. Thank you. We appreciate all of you guys joining us here on a Sunday night edition of Dodger Heads Live. Let's do this, Blake. My thought was to kind of just look back at the month that was. It's September 1st. There's a month to go basically in the regular season. And I think there's some serious questions, especially on the starting pitching front, which is where I want to go. And so let's take a sort of a state of the Dodgers and look at starting pitching. Guys that are in the mix, obviously we're going to get to Glasnow. We're going to get to Yamamoto. We'll get to Kershaw as far as injury rundowns and where we're at with that kind of a thing. But if you just look at the month of August, it's been a fascinating month for a lot of the guys in the Dodgers rotation. I'll start with the best. That's Jack Flaherty. Five starts, 28 and a third, a 3.5 ERA, but a FIP of 4.37. So he's kind of been as advertised, maybe slightly disappointing, but given all of the chaos around him, it's hard to be too bummed out about what he's given you. But then when it comes to Stone, Buehler, Miller, and even Kershaw before he got injured, I mean, talk about a roller coaster with some of these guys. Gavin Stone's season, his first, month, he was great. Then he had like a 9 ERA for like 5 consecutive starts. Then he had 3 great starts. Then he gives up 5 earned runs on Saturday. You've got Walker Buehler, who his last time out was the most encouraging start we've seen from him. Bobby Miller, his last start or 2 have been more encouraging. So I'll just give it to you big picture to take this wherever you want. When you think about the Dodgers rotation, Yamamoto and Glasnow to one side, give me the thing that jumps out to you most right now.
They're very inconsistent. Like you just said, you see flashes of upside there. Like we've seen with Gavin Stone, a lot of good starts, and then he mixes in some bad starts there.
Yeah.
We've seen more bad than good from Walker Buehler, but it does seem like he's on kind of the upswing there and hopefully kind of figuring it out. It seemed like Bobby Miller was taking a step forward after his previous start before his last one here. And then he came back and had another bad outing. and that was kind of discouraging. And then he said he was dealing with the knee injury and all that, so it's tough there. And then even Jack Flaherty's been the best of the bunch, but he said he doesn't feel totally locked in like himself yet since the trade, and he's still kind of working through some things, trying to get back on track. And he hasn't been that dominant pitcher we kind of expected to see and get from him like he was in Detroit. He's been good. It just hasn't been like what he's been doing this whole year. So you kind of got to get him back on track. You got to get Gavin Stone more consistent. And it seems like maybe his start was just kind of an outlier, but it's just a lot of inconsistency in the rotation. And then, of course, the injuries with Kershaw doesn't help them. Wroblewski coming up today and just allowing 8 runs in 2 innings doesn't help them. It's just a lot of question marks of guys who could be really good, but have been inconsistent, and you just don't really know what you're going to get from anyone anytime out.
Yeah, do you want to take a guess at which Dodgers pitcher who made more than one start had the best FIP of any starter in the month of August?
Of the Dodgers or like in
Dodgers,
baseball?
Dodgers.
I want to say Flaherty, but that seems high at 4.
Kershaw, despite the just absolutely dreadful last two, 3.22 FIP for him. Flaherty 4.37, Stone 4.6, Buehler 5.2, Miller 6.6. So kind of all over the map there, but it just goes to show you kind of the nature of this. I thought this was a great question. We got a super chat here from Jay Riff. Great show as always, guys. Who do you believe in more as a playoff starter, Bobby Miller or Walker Buehler?
Yeah. I want to say Bobby Miller because of the stuff and just betting on that stuff, but he has been such a mess this year. It's hard for me to like buy into that at all. Even with how good the stuff is, it's just really hard to buy into that. And while Walker Buehler has looked more encouraging his last 2 starts, it's still like
so low.
Not good. Yeah, the bar is really low. It's for me, it's kind of like flip a coin. If you had to tell me to pick one to start right now, I'd probably go with Buehler, but that's with like.
Do you just plug your nose and say, hey, maybe he digs back into the time machine and we get a little bit of Walker Buehler playoff magic? I mean, that's kind of the biggest upside of all of this is, well, maybe Buehler gets some adrenaline and who knows what happens, right?
Yeah, Buehler has been a big game pitcher in his career who has thrived off that adrenaline, so maybe that would help him. Seems like he's figuring some things out, and like we've seen with Bobby Miller, it seems like sometimes the moment does feel a little too big for him. We saw in his first playoff start, he kind of imploded a bit, and like his composure has been something we've talked about a lot. So even with how good the stuff is, it's just really hard to trust him. But like again, the bar is so low here. You're flipping a coin and saying pick one.
Well, I have another great question from you from not Jeff Spiegel. So the double negative there, but. Assuming Glasnow doesn't come back, which to be clear is not an assumption that I am making. I won't speak for Blake on if he's assuming that. We'll get to the injury updates there. But if Glasnow does not come back, I imagine in this scenario, Yamamoto does come back. You've got Yamamoto and Flaherty as your top 2. If you need a 3rd and a 4th starter, let's assume Kershaw is healthy and available, I suppose, in this scenario as well. So I give you Kershaw after a couple weeks off, Stone, Buehler, Miller, Landon Knack. Who are 3 and 4?
Gavin Stone's definitely my 3. I don't think that's really a debate at all. Like there's been some bad starts, but it's been mostly good. So
real quick, like Saturday against the Diamondbacks, anything in that start that has you like, holy crap, maybe we're going back to the 9 ERA over a month and a half kind of a guy, or just a blip on the radar? Because he had been 19 innings, 2 earned on the 3 starts right before it.
I want to see more. I'm like not concerned yet. The Diamondbacks are a good offense, and like we talked about at the time, sometimes pitchers just don't have it that day. And the Diamondbacks have been playing well. They capitalized on it. It happens. So give me another start or 2 before I have any real worries about Stone. So he's definitely my number 3.
And I agree with you for the record on that. Stone is my 3rd as well.
And then my 4.
Kershaw, Buehler, Miller, or Knack.
Probably
or Tony Gonsolin. Hold on, I'll give you Tony Gonsolin potential.
Dave said no Gonsolin starting. He'd be a reliever. I think I'm gonna go bullpen game. Is that like an easy out there? They've done that in the past.
Fine.
Can I do that? Like I think that's their best way of getting through a game.
And that's not including like you're not like, okay, Bobby Miller, go give me 2 or 3 and then a bullpen game. You're just like Michael, not Michael Grove. That's the wrong example. Brusdar Graterol starting.
I think It might
Like
depend
no
on
bull.
how they pitch
Everybody's
for the
getting you
next.
4 outs or less.
I think it depends on how they finish for the next month of the season before like I could fully give an answer to that. But I'd probably say like Walker Buehler, go out there, give me 3 innings or something, face the lineup one time, and then we'll kind of figure it out from there. I mean, it's so hard to say because there's so many question marks right now with this group. It's if Kershaw comes back healthy, pitching well, he could make a case, and he probably would be the favorite for the Dodgers themselves just because it's Kershaw and he was pitching pretty well before.
Yeah.
I think Walker Buehler, if he keeps trending up, he could be the easy answer. It's still hard to bet against Bobby Miller's stuff, even though he hasn't been good. Like if you tell him to go 2 or 3 innings, like it could work. So
yeah.
I trust that they'd be able to figure out something that's effective, even if it's not ideal.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. I get labeled as the like won't give up on Kershaw guy, and that's fair. I'm not even saying that's a mislabeling of me. It's funny to me that Gavin Stone has 3 great starts, 19 innings, 2 earned runs, and everybody's like immediately all in on the train. Clayton Kershaw, prior to this last stretch of 6 innings that was brutal, 16 and a third, 2 earned runs. Those were his first 3 starts in August. So we're talking about a difference of, 2 2/3 innings between Stone's great stretch and Kershaw's great stretch. Everybody's back in on Stone. Everybody's all out on Kershaw.
For me, it's about the bigger sample size and the quality of pitches. Like me and Scott have talked about it a lot. Kershaw has the potential to be really good when his stuff is on and his command is locked in, but you never know if you're going to get that command with him, and the margin of error is just so small there. Like I wouldn't really want to bet on that in the playoffs specifically or out of the bullpen or anything. I know that's been a popular take about not having him start, just put him in the bullpen, but I don't think that's ideal for anyone. So
no.
Yeah, it's just you're betting a lot on him being completely locked in a do or die situation. I just don't really buy into that.
Yeah, and again, to put this in context, we're talking about Kershaw versus Walker Buehler versus Bobby Miller. Like, I'm not like, Kershaw over Flaherty. If I had to choose, give me Kershaw. It's like we're talking about, when you say the margin for error is so slim, we're talking about 3 guys that, Buehler and Miller, the sample size we've seen this year, there might not even be a margin for error. It's just error, it feels like, in a lot of these guys. And so we'll see. To your point, I don't even know if Kershaw is going to be able to contribute. We'll see how short. Dave Roberts has said this is an injury he's been dealing with for a couple of years, which means in some ways he might just be the minimum 15 days. He might not even have to kind of build back up after this injury, or with a month left in the season. Like, it's not an ideal time to be missing anything. So we appreciate the super chat from both of you guys. Not Jeff Spiegel and Jay Riff. Thank you for those super chats. Let's talk Landon Knack really quickly. I got asked a question on social media that was basically, if you had to guess, why has this guy not pitched more for the Dodgers? I included this stat. In 10 major league starts this season, Landon Knack has allowed more than 2 runs just twice. So 8 of the 10 have been 2, 1, or 0 earned runs for Landon Knack. He has a 3.00 ERA on the season. He made 1 start in the month of August, 4 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 2 strikeouts. Before I share kind of my own response to that question, I'm curious to get yours, Blake, as to why Landon Knack wouldn't be ahead of Buehler or Miller or Kershaw, or maybe he's ahead of a couple of those guys in your mind, but why he hasn't been used more / why he isn't higher up the quote unquote power rankings.
The last time me and Scott talked about it, I called him the break glass in case of emergency pitcher that the Dodgers have right now. And you're going to call him up if you absolutely desperately need a starter for the rest of the season. And the reason for that is he's running low on his minor league options. So they couldn't just call him up and then send him back down easily. He has one more time where they can do that. And then if they want to do it again, he'd have to clear waivers. So they're trying to be cautious with calling him up until he's actually going to stay on the roster or can kind of go through the end of the season without needing him again. And then it's also about like the pitching depth they have. It's just, you can't really give up on Walker Buehler just because of the state of the rotation right now. You can't give up on Bobby Miller. You can't go out releasing anyone, because if you do that, then you take Landon Knack, move him into a significant role instead of the depth role, and now you don't have anyone in case someone else gets hurt. So he's kind of just there to be the emergency guy if they need him, which is unfortunate because they needed him earlier in the season quite often. So he used up a lot of his options, and that's just kind of the state they're in right now. You can't call him up just to make 1 start, because then you essentially have to leave him in the minors the rest of the season once you send him back down. or he has to stay on the roster for the rest of the year, and then you end up DFAing like Walker Buehler or someone like that and completely hurting your depth.
But I mean, like, why would they allow themselves to get to a place where Justin Robleski is making a start? Like, and I know it's, well, because he piggybacked Yamamoto. Well, they knew, like, it's not like this all surprised them that they needed a starter on Sunday. So, like, why do they seem so much more willing to give a guy like Justin Robleski those chances? I mean, would you say it's strictly because at this point in the season, because of the option situation?
I think it's fully based on the options that they have.
Yeah.
They could call up Robleski, send him back down, and then if you need him again in September, you can call him up again.
Yeah.
With Knack, if you call him up for the spot start and then send him back down to get another reliever, the next time you call him up, you're either keeping him on the roster through the end of the year, you're DFAing him to get the space and try and send him back down, which would mean he'd have to clear waivers and some other team would claim him. And you're just hurting your depth when you do that. So they kind of say it's better to have the extra starting pitcher in our system that we can keep and save for later than try and win a Sunday game on September 1st when we still have a month left and all our pitchers are getting hurt. We have 11 guys on the IL or 12 now, whatever it is. So you kind of just need to keep all the options available that you have. And it was just more of a numbers game than anything.
Yeah, and part of this goes to, like, well, why has he been optioned 4 times? Like, why hasn't he stuck around longer and not needed to be sent up and sent down? This is my two things I said, Blake, and I'd love to get your feedback and process through this. The first one is just strictly, like, if you look at his Baseball Savant page, the underlying metrics for Landon Knack do not suggest that the success he's had of a 3.00 ERA are highly sustainable. If you look at his hard hit rate, his barrel rate, his whiff rate, his chase rate, his average exit velocity, every single one of those numbers is in the bottom 20%, 35% of Major League Baseball. Strikeout rate, league average, expected ERA, 70th percentile. So it's not all bad, but there's a lot of dark blues. So I think part of it is, I'm not saying he's not good, but 3.00 is probably a misleading number. The real Landon Knack is probably an upper threes type guy, which is nothing to scoff at. But the second thing, and this is something that I've been suggesting, and Gavin Lux was kind of exhibit A for me for a while, is that the Dodgers have made clear, and this isn't breaking news, their goal is to win the World Series. Well, the way that they intend to accomplish that is they want to give the guys who raise their ceiling the most as much of a leash, as much as an opportunity as humanly possible to be successful. So for Gavin Lux, it was like, why have they not DFA'd? Why have they not DFA'd? And they said, because if we give him 4 months instead of 3 months and he eventually figures it out, we are a much better baseball team if Gavin Lux is hitting and playing second base. I would suggest the exact same thing is happening with Walker Buehler and with Bobby Miller, in the fact that the Dodgers are saying is right now, like if they needed to win tomorrow's game, would Walker Buehler or Bobby Miller or Landon Knack give them the best chance? Probably Landon Knack. But the Dodgers are saying if we give Walker Buehler or Bobby Miller 3 or 4 more starts, and one of those two guys even comes remotely close to figuring it out, then that is a much better World Series winning option for the Dodgers. Do you believe there's anything to that?
I do. My pushback to that would be when they called up Bobby Miller last time, Dave Roberts basically said it's because we have to.
Fair.
We didn't have any
Bobby
other
Miller
options.
might be the wrong example.
Yeah, I think Miller and Buehler both have more upside per se. I think Knack is definitely overpitched, like what his metrics suggest. Yeah. At some point, I think you also do need to consider like he is getting it done regardless of what the metrics say. Okay. Like Bobby Miller has good metrics, but he's not getting it done. So how do you kind of balance that out? I think you kind of got to go with the hot hand there. I will say when they did call up Bobby Miller, Landon Knack was optioned recently, so they would have had to make more roster moves like an IL or something like that to get him back. So there was some truth to that, but also they could have ended up sending Miller down his next start and replacing him with Knack, but they chose to keep Miller. So I think there's some truth in what you're saying there. I don't know if I fully buy into that. I think it's a lot of focused on the depth and options that they do have. And like, even if you thought Landon Knack was going to be better and better for their postseason, you'd have to essentially DFA Bobby Miller or someone, or not, Walker Buehler or option Bobby Miller. And then you're hurting your depth there still, because then you don't have Miller available for essentially 2 weeks. And there's just a lot of moving parts. When you're managing a baseball roster throughout an entire season, it's not always just who's the better player, who's going to help us more on this day. It's considering what's going to put us in the better position moving forward, what's going to give us more depth if we need someone, what's going to help us out in the long run as well. So there's a lot of things that factor into it. I think it's mostly about the options, but I think there is some credit to your point about them sticking with guys who have more upside.
And to be clear, Bobby Miller has made as many major league starts as Landon Knack has this year. So those two guys are both in the same boat as far as, the ability to be sent up and down, and they have handled Bobby Miller and Landon Knack equally. Now, obviously, Bobby Miller started with the major league team, has had some injury problems. So there's some caveats there. Let's get to a couple of super chats. Laura asks, if the Dodgers don't or can't win the World Series, fill in the blank, any team except who? Blake, who would be worst case scenario winning the World Series?
Probably the Astros again. They're the only team I actually strongly dislike. I mean, I know people are going to get mad if they like the Giants and Padres. The Padres have just been like, I guess, the little brother to the Dodgers for so long. It's like, whatever. If you finally win one, sure, congrats. Go have fun. Like,
the chat's not going to like that, Blake. I don't think the chat's going to like this positive, the vibes, not totally anti-Padres vibes.
They're still like irrelevant to me, I guess, is like until they go out and prove it. Like, sure, they won the NLDS in 2022, and then they lost in the NLCS, but they still brag about that NLDS win, or in 2020, they still brag about getting to the wild card game while also trying to say the Dodger World Series wasn't legit. So, like, whatever. I just don't care about them at all. The Astros with the cheating and all that, I'm still not over that totally. So that's the only team I strongly dislike.
Wow. It's great. Look, I would put Padres, Giants, Astros are in the exact same bucket. I would be miserable if any of those teams had success. The Diamondbacks, I know they're in the division. Like, I kind of don't care about the Diamondbacks. Like, the way you're describing the Padres is kind of how I feel about the Diamondbacks. And I'm curious about people in the chat. Like, do people in the chat hate the Diamondbacks, or they're kind of like, whatever? Because Padres, Giants, and Diamondbacks are like, I'm miserable. Pretty much anybody else in Major League Baseball, I don't really care. Like, I'm like, that's fine. I mean, I'm sure there's some team I'm not thinking of right now, or a team that if I watched them play for long enough, I'd be like, I don't like that guy. But, and again, this isn't like who we think is going to win, but Giants, Padres, Astros, in their own category for me, I think.
I get it. I think the Giants will be popular. I think the Padres one will be popular just because they've been more of a rival recently than probably the Giants have, just talent-wise and all that. I do think there's still a lot of pushback from Dodger fans about calling Dodgers-Padres a rivalry. So I do think it's kind of funny there that like people are going to push back on that rivalry and then also say, but no, you absolutely can't win a World Series or we're going to feel bad.
Yeah.
So
it's a great point. I'm pretty sure we just defined what a rivalry is. Would you be miserable if this team beat your team / won the World Series? My thing is just I find Padre fans to be insufferable. So it would just be not wanting to hear from Padres fans, basically.
I would kind of say every fan base has their insufferable fans. I mean, I don't really want to judge the entire fan base based on it. I'm sure there's good.
No, I'm willing to. They all suck. They're all the worst. And I'm just saying the vocal minority. Like if for example, growing up in Los Angeles, when USC was really good, like it was the worst because USC fans were so loud and so vocal. When the Giants win, it's like these people come out of the woodwork who have not cared about baseball in forever. And then all of a sudden they're the biggest Giants fans they know. Like, I just feel like if the Padres win, it would be in my life. Like when the Rangers won the World Series, not a single person in my life cared. Like there wasn't any interaction in my world that had to remind me every day that, except for you, Blake, because you're a
Corey Seager disrespect.
Yeah, here. Except for you. Except for you. But like, it wasn't in my face. I feel like if the Padres won, it would be loud and it would be insufferable. So that's my take there. Anybody else? Like if the Diamondbacks won, nobody in my life would care. Like nobody would. I wouldn't have anybody in my life telling me like, oh man, how about those Diamondbacks talking crap? It just wouldn't be. I mean, you would probably.
I would put on my Diamondbacks hat and troll you a bit.
Yeah, Blake does own a Diamondbacks hat. He did just admit this on the screen.
Somewhere.
Do you own a Padres hat? I forget.
I have the South Korea Dodger Padre one where it's the Dodger logo on one side and the Padres on the other, but no like only Padres hat.
Do you own a Giants hat?
No.
Do you own an Astros hat?
Yes, but I got it before 2017. It was
Let's burn it. Let's do a DodgerHeads live stream and we'll burn the Astros hat.
It's such a cool hat, though. They had such cool designs.
How many super chat dollars would we need to get on one stream, Blake, to light the Astros hat on fire?
A good amount, because I'd also have to go get it out of the shed and all that. So good amount of work to go find it.
The chat's not happy, Blake. They don't love that you have an Astros hat.
It was before. A lot of people love the Astros. Like, they were a fun team that was hyping everyone up before the cheating stuff came out. And even after, like, in 2017, 2018, like, they were a very popular, easy team to root for at the time before we knew about the cheating. So it was a cool hat. I have hats from a lot of teams. I have Red Sox, and I think I have a Mets one. I have a Marlins.
Fine. Good with all those.
I have a Brewers. I've got a lot.
I'm fine with all those. I love the person who says Blake has a Celtics jersey. Blake loves, if you need reminding on who Blake's favorite teams are, he's a Patriots fan, he's a Celtics fan, he's an Alabama fan, and he's a Dodgers fan. So, and he owns an Astros and a Padres hat. So if you want just content.
Okay, I have to grab this. It's not fully, it's this from Korea.
Awful. No. Yeah, I'm out on that. I thought you were talking about on the sides. And I'm like, if you gave me like Padres, Dodgers small on the side, you're giving me a hat with a big old SD on the front seat. Fine. That's an awful looking hat. It's a terrible looking hat. Forget the Diamondbacks. It's terrible looking.
I get a hat from every stadium I go to. So I got that when me and Matt went to the NLDS last year. So
again, fine. Like the Diamondbacks, whatever. I think it's weird. I think the neon's awful looking. You went alternate logo. Like, I'll give you that. Like, you go alternate logo. I can get on board. 90% of people would see that and not realize it's a Diamondbacks hat.
I think it's a pretty cool hat.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, again, that one's not the one. It's hold up the Padres one again. It's got a big old SD on the front, bro.
Yeah, but I was there in Korea. Like, this is awesome merchandise.
You could have got a Dodgers hat, though.
I did. I have the...
So there you go. You could have just stuck with the Dodgers hat that says Soul Series on the side.
I've got it wrapped up because this one's really expensive, but it's the Dodger Korea one.
See, there you go. That was enough. You could have left with just that hat, and like it would have been like, hey, you know what? I got a hat from a series that I went to.
Yeah, but I also got the other one.
It's amazing. Everybody's just getting a window into Blake Williams right now, and I'm kind of here for it. So there we go. I think we have another super chat here. Couple more. Not Jeff Spiegel. Does Buehler's second Tommy John make you nervous for Ohtani?
Yes, but I don't think it's specifically Buehler's. I've made the case about guys who've had 2 Tommy John surgeries. It's always been issues with them. There's very few players who come back from it. The Dodgers and Ohtani haven't fully admitted it's Tommy John, so I was gonna say that's maybe my like cope there for it, that he could come back and be good still. They don't give any specifics on what he actually had, so hopefully he'll be okay, but it's always concerning when a pitcher's coming back from another elbow surgery.
Nobody on this show is ever going to tell you to believe any injury update that you hear from the front of a Dodgers organization press conference. Ohtani was quoted as saying that his second elbow surgery was, quote, completely different from his Tommy John surgery. So for what it's worth, you know, and it's the same to some degree, like Glasnow is a different situation, but I only compare them in that like our understanding of what Glasnow's elbow troubles were clarified after the fact. And looking back, it was like, oh, this was just a cleanup of the first time that he had elbow surgery. And so it wasn't like a second major surgery. So, look, you should be nervous with whether it was his first, whether it was his second, it was elbow surgery. You should be nervous about it. Here's why I'm not super nervous, because if he never pitches again, he'd still be very, very good at baseball and be Shohei Ohtani. He's going to pitch again. But the good news with Ohtani, unrelated to Buehler, is that Ohtani's going to win the MVP without ever needing to pitch. Walker Buehler is going to, you know, be on Sportsnet LA desk if he can't pitch again. So that's the difference between these two people.
Well, you got to give Buehler a chance to go out there and hit. Everyday guy.
You do not, in fact, have to give him a chance to hit. Jonathan wants to know, with Robleski struggling, is Danny Duffy close? Blake, can you confirm or deny Danny Duffy's status with the Dodgers organization?
I don't think Danny Duffy's a real person. I think that was a myth that the Dodger front office created. and they just wanted to have a guy who they could say he's close to coming back. We don't need to go make a trade or sign someone. We've got Danny Duffy coming. So, yeah, I think he's with the Rangers now, and I don't think he's pitched.
Yeah, I think his Wikipedia says he's a free agent.
Yeah,
so
he probably got released then or something.
Remember when they paid $1 million to Cole Hamels?
Yeah, for one simulated game, 1 inning, I think it was, or a bullpen session or something. Yeah.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy stuff. So shout out to Cole Hamels and Danny Duffy for cashing them checks. All right. We did start state of the team, starting pitching. Let's go bullpen here briefly. The bullpen numbers, Blake, unsurprisingly, a lot better than the starting pitching numbers in the month of August. Michael Kopech, 13 1/3, 0.6 ERA, 11.5 strikeouts per 9. How's this for a number? Evan Phillips, 12 1/3, 0.73 ERA, 14.6 strikeouts per 9. He's actually been better in many ways, or as good as Kopech, which I think might surprise some people. Bonda had 16 of 17 scoreless outings prior to his blow-up on Friday, which was his third consecutive day pitching. Daniel Hudson, since his 8 days off, 3 straight scoreless appearances. Ryan Brazier, smoke and mirrors. That could be his nickname. Ryan Brazier's nickname is just smoke and mirrors. 7 1/3, 3 hits, no earned, no walks, only 3 strikeouts. Doesn't matter. Getting the job done. Vesia, 10 of his last 11 appearances, scoreless. Blake Trinan gave up a run his first game back from the injured list. Since then, though, 4 1/3, scoreless. So I just named 7 dudes: Kopech, Phillips, Bonda, Hudson, Brazier, Vesia, and Trinan. Like, if those 7 dudes are healthy, Blake, is it crazy to say this might be the best Dodgers bullpen ever?
Probably not. They have a lot of talent in the group. I think you have to also hope Brusdar comes back here and can even solidify it more, because I don't think anyone wants to see the Joe Kelly playoff experience again.
Nope.
They could probably use like a long reliever in there that can give them multiple innings, because they don't have that. And as we've seen, that has kind of hurt them over the last few days. But overall, I think it's a really deep group with a lot of different options they could use in any situation. I know a lot of people have pushed for Kopech to solely be the closer, but I think they've done pretty well with their bullpen by committee thing that they've been doing. So I think the group is really good, and it's a strength for the team.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, look, like when you talk bulk real quick, I mean, if we talked about the starting pitching, if they did go to, like, let's say Glasnow comes back, Stone is the 4th pitcher, like, who do you think would be the type of guy who could fill that bulk role? Like, is it a Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller type? I don't want Clayton Kershaw anywhere near a bullpen. So like, is it somebody like that, or is it like you just stock up on relievers and make it like a 9-man bullpen, basically?
Probably stack up on relievers. I don't think they'd put Bobby Miller or Buehler into that role, because neither. I think Buehler did it in 2017 and it wasn't good at all. So I don't think they'd try that again, especially while he's still working through things. Like, that's not the time to try something like that.
Yeah.
I think Landon Knack could be a guy that they put in the bullpen, but it kind of seems like he would be really similar to Yarbrough, and it's not elite stuff, and you're just having him come in to more so.
I mean, 96 mile an hour fastball is still better than an 89 mile an hour fastball.
It is, but like the breaking stuff and all that isn't as good as Yarbrough, so you kind of take and give there. Like, he's not going to be a guy you put in a high leverage spot, and they already decided to move on from a similar guy like that. I think Knack probably has more value as a depth reliever or depth starter for them than being a reliever in the bullpen. So they could use a long reliever, but they just don't really have anyone that fits the mold too perfectly.
Yeah. The Catman, Tony Gonsolin, huh?
Yeah, maybe he could come in and give him 2 or 3 innings. We'll see. They haven't ruled it out.
Yeah, haven't ruled it out. I love that update. Again, Kopech, Phillips, Bonda, Hudson, Brazier, Vesia, Trinan. Like, the crazy thing about that is if you were to try and rank those 1 through 7, you would get to a 7th guy that you probably wouldn't hate to see in like the 8th inning of a close game. To have, normally you hope to have 3 guys in the category that I think there's a reasonable chance the Dodgers. I'll take Brazier out of that category, although the guy doesn't give up any runs. But the other 6, if it's like 3-2 in the 8th inning and they're like, hey, Blake Trinan's coming in or Anthony Bonda's coming in, like, I'm kind of not hating it in that scenario, which is kind of crazy.
I'd be a little concerned about Trinan. I still have concerns about Hudson with how he's looked recently. I would probably have Brazier over both of them, I think.
Okay.
I don't think Dave Roberts does at this moment, but I think if I was running the bullpen, he would be higher up on my trust tree. So
yeah,
it's kind of flip a coin with Treinen and Hudson for me right now. I know Hudson's been great all year, but the innings total, the age, everything, he's looked to be in decline.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. When you have to just get 8 days off, and Blake Treinen's was probably 15 days off just on the injured list, it's not the greatest sign in the world, but hey, if they're healthy and they get there, we'll see what happens. Real quick on the offensive side, here's the good news. Ohtani, Lux, Teoscar, Rojas, Muncy, Mookie, Kike, Pages, Freeman, all of them were well above average offensively according to weighted runs created plus. Will Smith, pretty much the only regular that wasn't. And real quick, where are you at on Will Smith? Like exit velocity, hard hit, couple hits, all that kind of stuff. Are we back in, or we need to see more?
It's been more encouraging, but I want to see more still. He's been slumping for a bit, and a few games is gonna change that. So yeah, I mean, I have hope, but I want to see more.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. Some stats from August. Ohtani, 12 home runs and 15 steals in the month of August. All this while hitting like 230. Like he was actually pretty bad in August, except for, hitting 12 home runs and stealing 15 bases. Gavin Lux, the highest weighted run created plus in August. So if you thought August was going to be the month that Gavin Lux came back to earth, Blake, news for you. Gavin Lux remains hot, slashing 295, 361, 523, almost a 900 OPS from Lux. Some other key numbers: Miguel Rojas, 130 weighted runs created plus. So nice to see him come back from the injury and still be very good offensively. Max Muncy, an OPS of like 1100 in a short stint for him. Mookie was good. Kike, 115 weighted runs created plus. And even Pages, I mean, I know he was down for a while, but he had an OPS of like 1,000 in 10 games in the month of August. So I just, the depth of this lineup, we keep talking about it. There's not really anything to say here other than I'm just really pleased with kind of where the offense is at right now, Blake.
Yeah, they're in a really good spot. They have a ton of options that are all performing well. And I think the only thing we can hope for at this point is that they keep it going through October.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's get to some injury updates, injury or status updates, injury rundown, whatever you want to call this. But if you haven't been paying close attention to every Dave Roberts pregame press conference, we wouldn't blame you. But let me just run down the latest on what we know about each of these guys, and then I'll let you respond, Blake, to are you buying or selling basically any of what Dave Roberts has been telling us. Let's start with Yamamoto. He's set to make his second rehab start on Tuesday in Oklahoma City. The plan is for him to go 3 innings and then pitch 1 extra inning in the bullpen, presumably mid-September. So maybe 1 more rehab start after that, and then a return to the Dodgers. There was a lot of mystery around this injury. As soon as a guy starts pitching in rehab appearances, I start to feel a lot better. Are you in the same boat there, or are we cautiously sort of get through Tuesday, get through the next one, and then we'll talk?
I'm pretty confident in Yamamoto. Everything has seemed like it's trending well. He's made all his starts on time, and it just seems really positive for him overall. Dave Roberts did say Yamamoto could even be an option to return after this rehab start here, depending on how it goes. So he might not even need 1 more rehab start after this one. So everything seems really encouraging with him.
Yeah. The next one, Tyler Glasnow, the other big name on this list. He was scratched from playing catch last Tuesday. This was when Dave Roberts told us he wasn't feeling well. The next day, apparently, he was feeling well. The exact same language, except the opposite. He threw from flat ground on Friday and Saturday in Arizona, both of which went well. He says, quote, that he is, quote, confident he will return this season, says he feels great right now. Did add, quote, I don't have a ton of time, but I think it will be enough. When asked, Dave Roberts said he and the organization are, quote, hopeful that Glasnow will be back. Are you, Blake, quote, hopeful that Glasnow will be pitching for the Dodgers at some point this season?
Hopeful is probably a good way of describing it.
Are you confident to use time? Are you more hopeful in Dave Roberts' language or confident Tyler Glasnow's language?
Well, the last time Glasnow said he was feeling good, it was right before he was put on the IL.
Fair.
And then the first time he started throwing, Dave Roberts said he came out of it well. There is no pain or issues with his throwing. And then they pushed his next time back, and Dave was asked about why they pushed him back. And he said Tyler didn't feel well throwing, came out of it poorly. So it's been one of those circus updates with him where everything contradicts each other. So I am just hopeful. I am not confident or anything other than that.
Yeah.
I think he would start an NLDS game, like, and go 3 innings or something, if worst case scenario. I just think if they can get him built up in time for pitching a regular season game and kind of get him to 5 innings for an NLDS start, that would be my best case scenario at this point, I think.
If I told you could get a Tyler Glasnow health update from either Tyler Glasnow or Dave Roberts, who would you believe more at this point?
Probably Glasnow, because he knows how his body's feeling more. Like,
he's also the guy that told us he was ready to make his start, that he was going to be fine. He didn't understand fully why he was going on the injured list.
I believe that to a degree. I think he probably was feeling fine at the time. And then when they checked on things more, they saw like, hey, this could get worse if you keep pitching type thing. And then like he went out and threw again and it potentially got worse. So I kind of believe him. Like, you got to trust your players to know what their body's feeling at the time and believe it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Glasnow is the correct answer. I'm just saying that his track record of health updates of himself have not exactly been perfect either. A couple more. Brusdar Graterol will report to Oklahoma City on Tuesday after throwing to hitters on Saturday. So he and Yamamoto both expected to pitch in that game on Tuesday. So some good news for the Dodgers there. We mentioned the bullpen and the state of it. Look, Brusdar's only pitched once, so I don't have crazy high expectations for him. He has never been a perfect pitcher, really, when you look at the big picture, but compared to the Joe Kellys of the world, like, he's clearly an option that is worth considering at this point. So some good news there. We mentioned Joe Kelly. He was placed on the injured list with right shoulder inflammation after throwing 1 million pitches on Friday and not being very good at throwing those pitches. And then the last one is Clayton Kershaw. If you missed it, he has a bone spur in his toe, placed on the 15-day injured list. Dave Roberts says it's something he's dealt with for a couple of years. Clayton Kershaw, in classic fashion, refused to really say anything other than that he was having trouble pushing off. So Joe Kelly, Clayton Kershaw, onto the IL, Brusdar Graterol seemingly on his way back, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that Brusdar's coming back. I think a lot of fans were happy when Joe Kelly went on the IL, and
yes,
I don't fully expect to see him back this year, just given the depth of their bullpen and what their pitching needs are, and probably not factoring into their playoff plans. So we'll see. Maybe he does come back for a week or two at the end of the season. I'm just not really expecting it. And then Kershaw, like, I don't know what to fully make of that. If he's been dealing with it for years and we haven't heard about it, that is a little strange. But hopefully he can come back and be an option for them at some point.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to some questions. If you have them, all caps questions. I have 2 from you right off the bat, Blake. The first one is this. Apparently right now, with 2 minutes left in the game, LSU, it's 4th and 8 on USC's 14. They're down by a field goal. They're in field goal range. Who would you like to win this game between USC and LSU?
I don't fully care. I'll say LSU just to troll Matt about USC losing.
Yeah. But you're a Bama guy.
I don't watch college football all that much, so like if nothing else is on and a game's on, I'll turn it on. But yeah, it's not my cup of tea necessarily.
Yeah. I hate USC. Like, if we want to talk about sports organizations, schools that I dislike, I grew up a UCLA fan, went to Oregon, so USC ain't my jam. If you had to be a UCLA fan in the Leinart, Reggie Bush, Pete Carroll era, it is it was a rough stretch to be living in the shadow of USC.
Well, Scott's a USC guy too. He's rooting for them.
I know.
So
and
then
Anthony
I can also,
is too.
Yeah, so gotta make fun of them all.
Yeah, Daniel's a UCLA guy, so shout out to Daniel. He made the field goal, by the way. So tie game with 1:47 left. My second one, and I don't know if you have an answer. I did not prepare you for this. I actually thought of it right as our intro video went on. Do you have like a hot take, like a Dodgers hot take that maybe you don't fully believe, you haven't fully fleshed it out, but like maybe just over the last couple of days, you've seen something, you've heard something, it's just like, I wouldn't say this out loud and plant my flag on it, but if hypothetically I were asked to say the craziest idea I've had that I don't fully believe, this is what I would say.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I stand by all my takes I make and back them up and believe them.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
I don't mean like you don't believe it, but it's more like it's a half baked. Like I need to see more to really plant my flag on this. But we're 10% of the way there, and I'm starting to think some crazy things.
Austin Barnes starting playoff game over Will Smith.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
probably not, but things are trending. Austin
fair.
Barnes 3-hit game today.
Yeah. Not Jeff Spiegel. What do you think of Alex Freeland? Is he a legit shortstop option for next year? Is playing with Oklahoma City right now, so that's as close to the major leagues as you can possibly get. He appears to be a legit shortstop prospect, a guy who can actually play the position. Do you think he's in range to be next year?
I would doubt next year because the Dodgers do tend to be pretty cautious with their players. I think Tommy Edman's going to start the year as their shortstop, so maybe sometime mid-season or after that he could be the guy they call up, but I don't think they're going to rush him or do anything like that.
Yeah, Tommy Edman under team control next year, can play shortstop. So I imagine that plan A is Tommy Edman as your shortstop and figure the rest out later. So obviously they could move Edman to center field if, say, Willie Adames or Ha-Sung Kim or somebody like that were signed.
Well, the outfield's going to be crowded with Mookie, Teoscar, and Juan Soto.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, one of those guys. Mookie will learn to play center field. That's what I've been saying the whole time.
Teo played it in the All-Star game.
What's that?
Teo played it in the All-Star game. All-Star center fielder.
Where are you at on Teoscar Hernandez's defense in left field?
It's not good.
Okay. Yeah, it's like quietly one of these things that I feel like pops up on my radar from time to time. Like Pages gets absolutely destroyed, and rightfully so. Nobody wants to see Andy Pages. I feel like Teoscar, in large respect, has gotten a pass for his defense in left field. And it's because he's hitting so incredibly well. He's so incredibly likable. Like, I'm not saying we should be giving guys more crap, but it's just funny to me because it pops up every once in a while. It's like, man, he's really not great out there. So, it's also left field. Ederico wants to know, for this year, do the Dodgers really need to have Yamamoto back? He doesn't have enough time to ramp up for October. I would say he does have enough time if the timeline stays on schedule. If he pitches 3 plus a bullpen inning on Tuesday, presumably by the middle of September, he would be up to 5 to 6 innings. So he definitely has the time. But do you think Yamamoto is like absolute must have if the Dodgers are going to make a deep run?
I think so, because as we were talking earlier in the show about who would the pitching options be if Glasnow isn't healthy, and like if you just replace that with saying if Yamamoto isn't healthy, it's still the same options, and we're kind of struggling to pick the last guy and flip a coin, and especially if you have Glasnow not back or limited and you're without Yamamoto, it'd be a tough run. You'd be talking about Flaherty, Gavin Stone, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw as your postseason rotation. That's not an exciting group to have necessarily. So, yeah, he's going to be pretty important to them.
Yeah, I'm with you. They just don't have options 5 and 6 that I feel great about. Like, is there a world where all the stars align and you can get a couple pretty good starts out of Walker Buehler and a couple pretty good starts out of Bobby Miller and like everything works itself out? Yeah, I mean, again, Brandon Pfaadt was like the Cy Young winner, basically looked like the Cy Young winner in a postseason run for the Diamondbacks last year after like a 6 ERA all year. So crazier things have happened, but if we're trying to align the best chances the Dodgers have, Yamamoto and Glasnow are going to be right in the middle of it. Aaron wants to know who I hate more, USC or Cam Newton. Cam Newton famously beat the Ducks in the national championship. It's still USC, believe it or not. That's how scarred I am from my childhood. You're a Cam Newton guy, right? Well, he's a Patriot, but it was an ugly run.
I mean, I'm indifferent, I guess.
Okay. Fair. All right. This is a good one. Rod wants to know, will any Dodger hitter end the regular season batting 300? The answer is yes, Rod, because Hunter Fiducia is hitting 333 and will not be taking any more at bats. Mookie Betts is currently hitting 299. I don't know. I don't believe he's qualified technically for the batting title. So if we're going on that regard, Ohtani is at 291. Tommy Edman is hitting 295 in 12 games. So Mookie's at 299. If Mookie counts, that's an option. If Mookie doesn't count, Ohtani at 291 is your next best. So do you think any of those guys, Mookie or Ohtani, get above 300?
I think Ohtani does.
Wow.
He's
I like
been
that.
in a pretty bad slump, like batting average wise.
Yeah.
He's been
He hit
slugging well,
230 in August.
but the average hasn't been there, and I think that'll pick up for at some point. I think he's going to get hot and go on a run where everything's just clicking for him. So, yeah, I think Ohtani gets there.
Okay. I don't think Ohtani's going to get there. If Mookie counts 299, I'll take my chances with Mookie. TQT, Diamondbacks have scored 29 runs in 3 games with no Marte and no Walker. Padres play us tough no matter what. Who scares you more in the playoffs?
The Diamondbacks.
Wow. Okay. Talk me through it, because I would say Padres. Their roster terrifies me.
I think the Diamondbacks, like without Christian Walker and Ketel Marte playing as well as they are, like they won last year, of course. I think their pitching is very underrated and good. I think they match up against the Dodgers well. Seems like Joe Mantiply has Shohei Ohtani's number. So I don't know. It's both those teams are pretty similar in my view. I just think the Diamondbacks, like Corbin Carroll, on the upswing here. After his bad start to the season, he's been great. Jake McCarthy's been playing great. They're a grittier, more scrappy team with the talent, and the Padres aren't necessarily that. So
yeah. Okay, this question's for you, Blake. GI wants to know: is it time to reconsider Kiermaier on the playoff roster, on the roster? Black hole offensively, high strikeout rate, low on base percentage, not much pop. Rally killer deluxe. People were crucifying Lux for far less.
I mean,
not my burner, by the way. I promise GI is not my burner, Blake.
Kiermaier's just here for the defense, like nothing more. He's a pinch runner, defender, probably the best defender the Dodgers have had in a decade or more, and probably will be the best defender they've had for another decade or more. That's what he's here for. He's not here for offense. If everything's clicking with the 1 through 8 spots in the lineup, Kiermaier's not going to affect them too much in the 9 spot. Every team's going to have a weak hitter there, but he's a backup. He's not going to be starting. It's going to be Tommy Edman in center and Miguel Rojas at shortstop in the playoffs come around. So, I mean, maybe he gets left off the playoff roster for, like, if they want to give Dalton Rushing a chance to be a pinch hitter or something like that, but I don't think it matters either way all that much.
At one point, you were suggesting maybe him starting postseason games and kind of like depending on righty lefty with Rojas. Are you off of that sort of train?
I think it makes sense still, but Miguel Rojas just keeps hitting, and like you got to keep just going with him if he's going to keep hitting, because it's not like the defense is bad there or anything. So Miguel Rojas is earning it. Credit to him.
Yeah. A couple questions that are very similar. Not Jeff Spiegel. Will the Dodgers call up Edgardo Enriquez this season? Christopher, which of these arms from AAA have the best chance to be on the playoff roster? Kasperius, Robleski, Knack, Enriquez, or Dreyer? So we'll go with this one, but the sort of the part B is, do you think Enriquez gets a chance? Not on the 40-man roster currently. And I'll double check. I can't remember if he needs to be added this offseason or not, but I'll look that up as we're doing this.
I think Enriquez has a chance. Like I said, they're going to probably call up a pitcher tomorrow. Maybe he's a surprise move they make and call him up. They could DFA someone easily, like Michael Peterson, or there's someone on the 40-man roster I'm sure they could get rid of. Yeah. Well, Honeywell's been okay. I think they might.
He already passed their waivers once. Is my point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make sense to give Enriquez a chance. Like the stuff is elite. See what he has. See what he can do. I would probably say Kasperius has the best chance of being on the roster, actually, just because he is more of a reliever than the other guys that they have. Like, I don't think Robleski has a chance. I think Knack they're going to kind of stay away from. So I don't really think any of them are going to be on it, but yeah, I mean, Kasperius might have the best chance just because he's on the 40-man roster already.
Now, why Kasperius over Knack and Robleski? Because they're all starters.
Kasperius has been used as a reliever only since they've called him up and they put him in their bullpen. The stuff is good. I think you could play up more out of the bullpen. It's more one of those flip a coin things for me. Like maybe Knack makes it over him, but we've talked about the flaws that Knack has earlier in the show already. Yeah. I think with Kasperius, they're kind of getting more upside in it, and like that's what we were talking about. The Dodgers are very focused on upside all the time rather than a floor. Yeah. So that's just kind of.
You're saying the Dodgers, when he's been at the major league level, they have been choosing. Okay, because I was going to say 19 appearances in the minors, 18 of them starts.
He's got an elite slider and a really good fastball, so like that's something that could play up in the bullpen in October. So
yeah.
I don't really think any of them are going to be on it at this point, but if I'm picking one,
you'd say Enriquez.
I would give Enriquez a chance, but I think the best chance to make it is going to be Kasperius at this moment.
Okay.
Because he's on the 40-man.
I would say Knack. Enriquez, by the way, has already been Rule 5 eligible. This guy throws 103 miles an hour, if you don't know who we're talking about, or like 105, I think he was clocked at. It's crazy. Just Google his name, and it's insane stuff. But I would say Knack just because they need a bulk guy, and Knack ends up being the guy. Like, that feels like a 5% chance, whereas I think most of these other guys is pretty much a 0% chance. Let's see. Mad Lad wants to know if Buehler continues his recent upward trajectory throughout the remainder of the season, do the Dodgers re-sign him? I think there is a 0% chance Walker Buehler gets re-signed by the Dodgers. Would you put a number higher than 0, Blake?
I'd probably put like 5%.
Wow.
I was at 0 before, but with how things have trended up recently more, and if he continues to trend up, like the Dodgers always need pitching. Buehler has expressed wanting to stay and having an interest in staying with the Dodgers, so I wouldn't totally rule it out. I don't think it would be likely, but I mean, crazier things have happened. They brought back Matt Kemp and made him an all-star, so you can't rule out anything.
Yeah, that was like 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah, I mean, can't rule anything
my thing
out.
on Buehler is just doing the math on not only like who they have on the roster now, but all of the guys who will be coming back. Of course, they always need pitching. That's why I'm like, they should still re-sign Jack Flaherty, despite Gonsolin and May and Frasso and Sheehan all coming back, and Stone and Miller and all these guys. I just Walker Buehler, like, it doesn't cross the threshold of, are we sure Walker Buehler is going to be like better than any of the 4 or 5 guys I just mentioned? Not to mention the young guys, Knack, Robleski, Kasperius, etc. So it'd be a no from me. David wants to know why he can't send you pictures on X. Do you know, Blake? He tags all of us in these delicious looking food pictures and says he can't include you in them. Any guesses? Do you have like some security measure set that where people can't tag you?
I have no idea. I can look into it, but yeah, I have no idea.
He sent us he sent us a thing saying that he's preparing for a fantasy draft party and he's getting 100 wings and a bunch of pizzas. Are you going for pizza first or wings?
Pizza.
Okay. Are you even touching the wings or just leaving those alone?
If they're bone-in wings, no. If they're boneless, yes.
Okay. Scott claimed that there would be no wings left for me and Matt because him and Anthony were going to eat them all. Those were the 4 people tagged. So there you go. Alleluia wants to know, how concerning would it be having only Bonda and Vesia as lefty pitchers in the entire group in the playoffs? I would be 0% concerned based on how these 2 guys have pitched this year. That's just me. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I think they went through most of the season without lefties really on their roster. So, I mean, the Dodgers have preached just get outs as a pitcher, not focus on lefty, righty, all that. So those 2 have been really good. I think they're going to be fine.
Tragic. USC scored a touchdown with 8 seconds left, a 13-yard touchdown run. So terrible. Well, good for our guy, Matt, who's there, by the way. So shout out to Matt. Bob wants to know, if Landon Knack stays up for September, how would he be used? Piggyback guy, 7th starter, who gets left out? In theory, well, I guess once Yamamoto and Glasnow comes back, who knows? But for now, they kind of need a 6th starter, right? Because that's the role that Robleski temporarily filled.
Yeah, probably 6th starter / like swingman type pitcher. I still feel like he's not going to be the guy called up tomorrow unless they just want the length that he can provide. So, yeah.
Okay. I have one last question. It's a chicken parmesan question, which is why you're the man to ask this to. Matt revealed that his favorite way to eat chicken parmesan is alongside fettuccine Alfredo.
Yeah, he's had that take for like 3 years now.
So I have a terrible memory. Are you a fan of this?
I haven't done it. I'd prefer just to have my chicken with the Alfredo sauce on it than doing like the tomato sauce with it. So,
wait. Say that again.
Like chicken Parmesan with Alfredo sauce instead of a tomato sauce.
You have tried that?
I have had that quite often. It's very good.
Okay. Yeah, look, I have no issues. The reason this came up is because I ate chicken Parmesan, and at the buffet, they had pasta and it was Alfredo next to chicken Parmesan cutlets. And so I was like, well, we're doing this. And I am notoriously will eat just about anything. But there you go. TQT has a fun question. I learned Blake and Scott were friends first before the DodgerHeads show. What are the stories of everyone else? Were Jeff, Matt, Daniel, etc. friends first? What's the origin story? Most of us are kind of just hodgepodge togethers. I've been writing for the website now known as DodgerBlue.com for like 13 years. It has had like 3 different names over that stretch. And then in 2020 was when Matt decided they wanted to get into sort of the podcast YouTube space. So he asked me if I would host it, which is how I got started. And then it was me and Matt or me and Daniel. And that was kind of it. So I don't think Matt and Daniel, I don't know Matt and Daniel what their relationship was before working together, but I did not know Blake. I did not know Scott. I did not know Matt. I did not know Daniel. I knew none of these people other than just being a writer that then became the podcast sort of YouTube host person. So, but you and Scott knew each other from college, right?
We met on Twitter first,
Okay.
and then randomly got into the same class by coincidence. So yeah.
Okay. There you go. There you go. Hawaiian Carrot. Jeff and Daniel got us through COVID. That's my favorite part of the whole story is that we started this show in May of 2020. Like, holy crap, we could not have picked. It was like 6 months, whatever, however many months, 2 or 3 months of just no baseball. There's a funny story in there about us talking Korean baseball and going viral on YouTube from somebody else's channel. But yeah, there you go. There you go. Good stuff. Here we go. Rod, we'll end on this one. Why do you think so many baseball fans care about each regular season game like they are an NFL fan? It's 162 games. Blake, what do you think? Any ideas?
That's a good question. And I try to explain that quite often on Twitter, that not every game's going to work out the way you want it to. And it doesn't matter as much. Like, there's a lot of games. I don't know, Rod, you tell me why you think that is, and we can discuss it. I think baseball fans are very passionate.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, my answer is just it's all you have in front of you. Like, you just watched the team lose. It's a lot harder to place that into a smaller bucket than like everything else that you've seen in front of you or behind you. If you're doing a post-game show, you're reacting to the game you just saw. So everybody knows here I am patience to a fault. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I think, Rod, this is a totally fair question. And no, Hawaiian Kira, to answer your question, they definitely do not need 162 games, but the owners are not going to be shrinking the schedule anytime soon. Let's just hope it stays at 162 and doesn't end up at like 180 or something like that. Noisy Ninja says it's just sports. So there you go. All right, folks, that'll do it for us tonight. You have something to say, Blake? I see you laughing.
Yeah, BC was calling me 30 and Scott 31. Scott is 31, I think. I am not 30. I turned 28 in October, so yeah. But
yeah, I can't remember if I'm older than Matt or not.
I think you might be.
Anthony's older than all of us, for the record. So I think I'm older than Daniel. I might be older than Matt. I believe Anthony's the oldest of all of us, but Blake is the baby. Confirmed. There you go. 28 years old. So you're only 27 right now.
I am.
There you go. There you go. It makes so much sense, you know? No, I'm just kidding. All right. Yeah, all of you are just kids, Kenny says. I know. Hopefully that doesn't depress anybody, how old we are, or young, I guess, in this case. Yeah, that is a funny. I
think Daniel, a year or two older than me. So I think so.
It could. Yeah, I'm the worst. Look, I could tell you some horrifically embarrassing stories about my ability to remember people's age, let alone like my best friends that have kids, how many kids they have, what their kids' names are. It's like, don't even start. So trying to remember somebody's age. I typically just remember older or younger, and that's just those are the 2 categories that I have. So
yeah, I think I am a Libra. I don't know. I don't follow all that stuff, but I think Libra is correct.
Yeah. So that's maybe when Blake is 30, we'll grow out of Star Wars. Maybe, Blake, is that what we're thinking? Is that the age?
No, it's never going.
Just kidding. Jeff looks like a teenager. I appreciate it. It's normally you see me with a beard, and that's because it makes it so that I don't look like a 16-year-old. So there you go. Gray in the beard if I grow it out. But all right, enough of that. Almost 1,200 people in here on a Sunday night. You guys, we so appreciate every single one of you. If you're not already, please subscribe, ring the notification bell. If you're on Apple, Spotify, or Google, rate, review, leave us a comment. We would greatly appreciate that. You can check out DodgerBlue.com. Of course, check out the Dodger Blue YouTube page. Content coming at you 5 or 6 days a week live, as well as when they are at home, in-stadium interviews, press conferences, all that type of thing. That is Blake Williams. I am Jeff Spiegel. Folks, enjoy the rest of your night. And as always, go Dodgers.